I've worked as a 911 dispatcher for a little over 7 years now. Most people don't think about us very much. They think about the officers, the firefighters, the EMTs, the ones who show up at the scene. But every emergency starts with a call, and every call starts with one of us. Nights are always the hardest. You sit in a dim room, staring at screens, half listening to the buzz of other operators. Sometimes it's so quiet you could convince yourself the world has gone to sleep and nothing bad could possibly happen. And then the phone lights up, and you hear someone's worst moments spilling into your ear. I'd learned to live with the rhythm of it. The car crashes, the bar fights, the heart attacks and overdoses. A lot of the time it was routine, or at least it was supposed to feel routine. That night was a Tuesday, somewhere past 2 in the morning. I'd been sipping lukewarm coffee, scrolling through incident reports, when the call came through. Line 3. The sound that jolts you awake, whether you want it to or not. I hit the button, brought the headset up. 911, what's your emergency? At first I thought the line was empty. Just a faint hiss like static. I was about to repeat myself when I heard it, breathing. Shaky, shallow. A voice finally came through, barely above a whisper. Someone's inside. My body stiffened, but I kept my tone steady. You learn not to show panic no matter what you hear. Ma'am, sir, can you tell me your address? The whisper came again, urgent, trembling. He's already inside. That was when I knew it wasn't just a prank. You can hear real fear. It does something to the voice, makes it crack in places it shouldn't. I sat forward, scribbling on my notepad. I need you to stay with me. What's your address? There was a pause. I could hear the caller's breath, shallow and quick, like they were trying not to make noise. Then slowly, 14. Sycamore, I typed it in. It was a residential neighborhood a few miles out. Older homes, quiet streets. Nothing unusual. Okay, I've got that. Can you tell me your name? Another pause. Then, almost like they were afraid the walls themselves could hear them. Laura. Okay, Laura. I'm dispatching officers to your address now. I need you to stay as quiet as you can. Can you tell me what's happening? Her whisper came fast, panicked. I woke up. I heard the back door. It creaked open. I thought maybe it was the wind, but then I heard it close. He's moving around down there. Her words made me glance at the clock. 2:17 a.m. That was always when the worst things seemed to happen, when the world was dead quiet. I typed instructions to send a patrol unit. My partner across the desk gave me a look, raised his eyebrows, but didn't ask. We'd both had our share of break-in calls. Laura, can you see him? I asked. No, she breathed. I'm upstairs. I locked the door. I can hear him, though. He's dragging something. That detail made my skin prickle. Dragging something? Yes, it's heavy. I don't know what it is. Please hurry. I kept my voice calm, like I was trained. The officers are on the way. You're doing great. Just stay quiet. Don't hang up. There was a creak through the line, and for a second I thought it was her moving. But then I realized it wasn't. It was coming from the phone itself, like it had picked up the sound of someone shifting their weight on old wood. I tried to ignore the chill crawling down my spine. Do you have any weapons, Laura? No. A whisper so faint I almost missed it. Just the phone. Okay, stay on the phone. Stay with me. I could hear her breathing, quick and shallow. Then something else. A sound in the background. Low, slow, like a footstep. I pressed my pen so hard against the notepad I thought it might snap. He's on the stairs, Laura whispered. My throat felt tight. Okay, lock the door. Stay quiet. Help is on the way. I listened. The sound was faint, but I could hear it too. A dull thud, then another. The rhythm of someone climbing steps one at a time. Laura, I whispered, without even realizing I'd lowered my own voice. Can you hide? No, he'll hear me, please. Don't let me die. Her words stuck in my head, heavy as stone. I looked at the screen showing the patrol car. Still 3 minutes out. 3 minutes can feel like a lifetime. The steps grew louder. Then there was silence. I held my breath. I could hear hers too, ragged, terrified. And then 3 slow knocks against wood. Laura whimpered. He's outside the door. My skin went cold. I tapped frantically on my keyboard, urging the patrol to hurry. Laura, don't say anything. Just stay quiet. Don't move. We both listened. Another knock. Then a pause, and then a voice. not hers. A man's, low, almost playful. Right against the receiver. I can hear you, I froze. For a second, I thought maybe it was feedback, some strange echo. But no, it was clear, right there on the line, and it wasn't Laura. Her breathing hitched. He's outside my door. The line went suddenly sharp, like the sound clipped. And then, silence. Laura? Laura, can you hear me? I pressed my headset closer, heart pounding. Nothing. Just the faint hiss of the line. I checked the map. The patrol was pulling onto Sycamore. 30 seconds out. Laura, stay with me. My voice felt desperate. Still nothing. Not even her breathing. And then, the worst thing. The line didn't disconnect. It stayed open. I could hear faint noise, but not her. Something else. A dragging sound. Heavy, slow, moving across the floor. When the officers arrived, I waited for the update. They reported the house was dark. Back door open. No one inside. No signs of a break-in, no blood, no struggle. Just an empty house. And yet the line was still active in my ear. I finally disconnected when the officers confirmed the house was clear. I sat there, headset heavy against my head, staring at the blank screen. We tried calling the number back, but it was listed as disconnected. Had been for years, according to the record. I didn't sleep that morning. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it again. That voice, right against my ear. I can hear you. People ask me sometimes what the hardest part of being a dispatcher is. Most of them think it's hearing the screams or the crying or the panic. And that's bad, yes. But the truth is, it's the silence that stays with you. The moments when you know something is happening, something awful, and all you have is dead air. You're listening so hard that every little sound feels like it's meant for you. Like you're eavesdropping on something you were never supposed to hear. That was what happened after Laura's call. The officers cleared the house and reported nothing unusual, but the phone line didn't disconnect. Normally, when a call ends, the system closes automatically after a few seconds. But that line just stayed. Even when I hit disconnect, the signal kept pulsing on the screen, like it refused to die. I put my headset back on, and that's when I heard it. At first, I thought it was just background noise, static, maybe from interference. But then I realized it had a rhythm, a faint rasp, in and out, breathing. I swallowed hard and said her name again. Laura, are you there? No answer. Just that slow, unsteady breathing. I waved my partner over and told him to listen. He frowned, took my headset, and after a few seconds, shook his head. I don't hear anything. Just static, but I knew it wasn't just static. I'd spent years on these phones, and there's a difference. Static doesn't catch, doesn't hitch in the throat like someone trying not to make noise. I took the headset back. The breathing was still there, steady, deliberate. That was the moment something shifted for me. I realized I wasn't just listening to a victim anymore. I was listening to someone, or something, that wanted me to hear them. The line stayed open for almost 40 minutes. I tried again and again to raise her, to get a word, a sound, anything. Nothing changed. No footsteps, no voice. Just breathing and the low hum of static like a storm far away. Finally, the system cut the line on its own. I sat there in the dim light of the dispatch center, staring at the blank screen like it had betrayed me. I went home at dawn, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how clear her fear had been, how real that man's voice sounded, and yet the police found nothing. No forced entry. No sign anyone had even been there. That should have been the end of it. Calls like that come and go, and eventually you learn to file them away, even when they don't make sense. But it wasn't the end. 2 nights later, I was back on shift. It was after 1, the building quiet, except for the low murmur of voices. I'd almost convinced myself I'd imagined it, that I'd mistaken the static for breathing. Then line 3 lit up. I answered automatically, the script flowing out of me. 911, what's your emergency? Static. That same hiss, sharp in my ear, and underneath it, the breathing. My hand tightened on the desk. Hello? Can you hear me? Nothing. The line wouldn't disconnect. My system showed no number, no address, just unknown. I should have logged it as a ghost call. Those happen sometimes when lines cross or equipment glitches. But this didn't feel like a glitch. It felt like a continuation, I sat there with the line open, headset pressed tight, straining to catch any detail. My skin prickled. The breathing was slower this time, heavier, like someone standing very close to the receiver, I whispered before I even thought about it. "Laura." For a second, the breathing stopped. That pause. It was the worst thing I'd ever felt. Like whoever was on the other end had been waiting for me to say it. Then, slowly, the breathing started again. I yanked the headset off and shoved it onto the desk. My partner glanced at me. "You okay?" "Bad line," I muttered. My voice cracked in a way I didn't like. The system finally cut the call after 15 minutes. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I told myself I was just tired. Stress can do that to you. It can make shadows look like figures, make static sound like whispers. I wanted to believe that, but the calls kept coming. Every night for a week, always around the same time, line 3 would light up. Always unknown, always that faint hiss, the breathing woven underneath. Never a voice, never a word. I started to dread it. I'd sit there watching the clock, waiting for it to happen. And when it did, my chest would tighten like a fist around my lungs. The worst part was that no one else could hear it. I asked my partner again, asked the shift supervisor. Every time they shook their heads. "It's just static." But I knew better. By the 6th night, I couldn't take it anymore. The line opened at 2:13 a.m. I pressed the headset to my ear and whispered, "What do you want?" The static swelled, louder than before, filling my head like a rushing tide. And then, so faint I thought I'd imagined it, a whisper. Not Laura. Deeper. Male. "You." I tore the headset off and slammed it on the desk. My partner jumped. "Jesus, what the hell's wrong with you?" I didn't answer. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't type. The line stayed open for 23 minutes that night. When it finally disconnected, the silence of the dispatch room felt unbearable. My own breathing was too loud. Every tick of the clock was sharp, unnatural. I didn't want to admit it, but I felt watched. Not just at work. At home, too. My apartment creaked in ways I hadn't noticed before. My phone buzzed at odd hours with no missed calls, no messages, and sometimes lying in bed in the dark, I swore I could hear it. That same low static, humming faintly in the silence. I told myself I was imagining it. But deep down, I knew the truth. The call hadn't ended. It never ended. It was still there, waiting on the line, breathing in my ear, and sooner or later it was going to say more. The hardest part about working nights is that time loses its shape. Hours stretch and fold until you don't know if it's late or early, only that it's dark. That week after the calls started, the nights felt endless. I wasn't sleeping much. When I closed my eyes, I kept hearing that static hum, that breathing, playing on a loop in my head. Sometimes I'd think, back to Laura's voice, the way she whispered, like every sound might be her last, and I'd wonder if she'd really been there at all. But then the system gave me an answer. It was the 8th night when the call came again, same as always. Line 3. Unknown. My hands shook as I answered. Static. Breathing. This time, though, I didn't whisper back. I hit a different button instead. Trace. Normally, when you run a trace, it either shows the caller ID or it bounces if it's a restricted line. But this time, numbers started scrolling across the screen. An address loaded into the system. My heart thudded so hard I could barely hear. 14 Sycamore. Laura's house. I called the patrol unit before I could even think. "The call is coming from the same address. Send someone now." They didn't argue. They already knew the history. 2 cars rolled out. I kept the line open, headset tight against my ear. The breathing was steady. Almost too steady, like whoever it was wanted me to know they were still there. I whispered, "Who are you?" No answer. Just that soft, measured rasp. The patrol arrived in under 10 minutes. I watched their dots on the screen stop in front of the house. The static swelled as they got out. Like the closer they came, the louder it grew in my ear. Then the radio crackled. "Dispatch, we're inside. House is empty. No sign of anyone." I clenched my fists. "The call is coming from there." "I've got it active right now." They swept the house. Room by room, voice updates over the radio. Kitchen, clear. Living room, clear. Upstairs, Clear. I pressed harder against the headset. Check the phone lines. Silence for a moment. Then the officer's voice came back. Dispatch, the phone lines here were cut. Looks like maybe 2-3 days ago. There's no way this call is coming from inside. I froze. My system showed the line was still live, still active, still inside that house. And all I could hear was breathing. The officers went quiet for a few minutes as they searched again. Then one of them came back on the radio, voice lower than before. Dispatch. You're going to want to sit down for this. I was already sitting, but my knees felt weak. Go ahead. There are photos in the hallway. Family portraits. Husband, wife, 2 kids. Neighbors say they haven't seen them for about a week. Mails piled up. Food's rotting in the kitchen. It's like they just vanished. I scribbled notes with a hand that wouldn't stay steady. Do we have missing persons reports? Negative. Nothing filed. I looked at the screen again. 14 Sycamore. The line was still active. Still breathing in my ear, I whispered again, without meaning to. Laura? The breathing stopped. And then, so faint I almost missed it, came a whisper. Not frantic like before. Not terrified. Calm. Flat. You're late. The sound hit me harder than a scream would have. I ripped the headset off, heart pounding, staring at it like it had teeth. The officers didn't hear anything. To them, the house was empty. But to me, the line stayed open until 3:04 a.m., when it cut itself off like always. The next day, the records department confirmed the phone service at that address had been disconnected 3 days earlier. The wires in the basement had been physically cut, but the calls kept coming. I wish I could tell you that was the end. That once we found the house, once we realized the family was missing, the calls stopped. But they didn't. They kept lighting up my screen, night after night, always the same line, and each time, the voice grew clearer. The last night I took one of those calls, I didn't even say 911. What's your emergency? I just pressed the headset to my ear and waited. The static hummed. The breathing came, and then, after a long silence, the whisper again. Not her. You. My throat went dry. The patrol was already watching the house by then. They swore nothing had changed inside, but I knew better. The call wasn't coming from the house anymore, it was coming for me. I stopped working nights soon after. I asked for different shifts, begged for them, really. They didn't give me a reason, but I think the supervisors knew something wasn't right. My notes were messy. My reports didn't make sense. The last time I checked, that house on Sycamore was still empty. No sign of the family, no bodies, no answers. But some nights, when the air is quiet enough, I still hear it. Not through the headset anymore. Through the walls, through the hum of the refrigerator, through the silence right before sleep. That same whisper, soft and certain, waiting just for me. You're late. The strange thing about night shifts is how quiet the world feels. Cities might buzz, but out here in the rural districts, the hours between midnight and dawn feel like time just stops. Calls slow down. Sometimes, for hours, the phones don't even ring. You'd think that would feel peaceful, but it doesn't. It feels like something's waiting. That's the mindset I was in when the first call came about the woods. It was just past 1:30 in the morning. I was sipping burnt coffee, scrolling through routine logs, when Lean 2 lit up. I answered like always. 911, what's your emergency? At first I only heard breathing. Not panicked, just uneven, like someone who'd been running. I repeated myself sharper. This is 911, do you need help? A man's voice finally came through, rough and shaky. I don't know what I'm hearing. I frowned, pen poised over my notepad. Where are you, sir? I pulled off near Hollow Pines Road, by the trailhead. There's something out there? Hollow Pines was deep country, acres of woods that seemed to swallow the sky. Locals used it for hunting, camping, the occasional dirt bike trail. Not the kind of place anyone should be at 1:30 in the morning. What is it you're hearing? I asked. There was a pause. I heard wind rushing through his phone, then something else. Faint, distant. It sounded like screaming. Not words. Not clear cries for help. Just raw, ragged noise, stretched too long. Like lungs forcing out every bit of air they had. The sound prickled the hair at the back of my neck. Do you hear that? He whispered. I swallowed. Yes, I do. How long has this been going on? 10 minutes. Maybe more. I thought it was an animal, but it He cut himself off. Animals don't sound like that. I typed the location into the system. Sir, are you alone? Yes. His breathing sped up. I can't see anything. It's pitch black past the tree line, but it keeps moving. Sometimes close, sometimes far away. The screaming came again, louder through the phone this time, drawn out and shrill. It didn't sound human exactly, but it didn't sound like any animal I'd ever heard either. It shifted, broke, then carried on, as if it didn't need to stop for breath. The man cursed under his breath. What the hell is that? I gripped my pen so hard my fingers hurt. Stay in your vehicle. Keep the doors locked. Officers are en route. I dispatched a unit while keeping him on the line. His breathing was quick, uneven. The screaming rose and fell in the distance, sometimes so faint I thought it was gone, only to roar back even closer. He whispered again. It's moving around me, circling. My throat felt dry. Stay in the car. Don't go into the woods. Do you think it's a person? The way he said it made my stomach twist. Because the truth was, I didn't know. The sound wasn't right. Too long, too distorted, too cold. Sir, just stay calm. Help is on the way. The line went quiet for a while. I thought maybe he was just listening, like I was, to that endless screaming rising and falling beyond the trees. Then he whispered, It stopped. I pressed the headset tighter. The night on his end was dead silent now. No wind, no screaming, just his shaky breath. I don't hear it anymore, he said. Okay, that's good. Stay where you are. But before I could say more, there was a sound through the line that made my stomach drop. A single sharp cry. Not distant this time. Not faint. Right next to his car, the man shouted, fumbling with something. His phone clattered. For a few seconds, I only heard chaos. Rustling, the slam of a door, his muffled voice. Then he was back on the line, breathless. It's right outside. It's in the trees. I wanted to say something calm, reassuring, but the words stuck in my throat. All I managed was, lock the doors. Do not get out, he whispered. It's staring at me. My heart thudded. What do you see? There was silence. Then he said, I don't know. I can't. It doesn't look right. His voice cracked. It looks like a person, but it isn't. Its mouth. He cut off. The phone crackled with a sharp noise like feedback, and then the screaming started again. Only this time it was so loud it distorted the line. Not distant anymore. Right there. I yelled his name, but there was no response. Just the screaming, pouring through the phone until I had to rip the headset away from my ear. Then it stopped. Dead silence. I put the headset back on, whispering. Sir, can you hear me? Nothing. I stared at the screen. The call was still active, the timer counting up, but the line was silent. The patrol unit arrived 12 minutes later. They found the car pulled over at the trailhead. Engine off, doors locked. Headlights still glowing against the trees, but it was empty. No driver. No footprints leading away, nothing. The phone was on the passenger seat. Still connected to 911, still live. When the officers picked it up, all they heard was static. I went home at dawn that night, but the sound stayed with me. Not just in memory. It lingered in my ears, in the quiet spaces of my apartment, in the hum of the refrigerator. That scream wasn't human. I know that much, and whatever it was still out there in those woods, waiting. I thought the first call was going to be the end of it. A strange night, a missing man, a sound in the woods that I couldn't explain. But like everything else in this job, I figured it would fade into reports and unanswered questions. But it didn't. It spread. The second call came 3 nights later, around midnight. I was halfway through a stale sandwich when Lean 4 lit up. I answered, my voice groggy from too much coffee and too little sleep. This is 911. What's your emergency? A woman's voice came through, sharp, panicked. Do you hear that? Tell me you hear that. My stomach dropped. Ma'am, I need you to calm down. Where are you? Off Route 7, near the old fire tower. It's in the woods. It's screaming. Her phone rattled as she pressed it out toward the sound. And sure enough, I heard it. That same long, ragged wail, stretching far too long, breaking and then continuing like a voice that didn't need lungs. It was the same sound from the first call. Cold sweat slid down my back. "Stay in your vehicle. Lock the doors. Officers are on their way," the woman kept whispering over and over. "It's too loud. It's too close. It's too loud," until the line went dead. When patrol reached her, they found her sitting in the car with the doors locked, lights on, shaking so bad she couldn't hold her ID steady. She hadn't moved an inch, but she swore the screaming circled her car for 20 minutes. They didn't find anything. That should have been strange enough. But less than an hour later, another call came in. This time it was a truck driver, his voice gravelly, strained. "I'm on County Road 12 near the bridge. There's something out here. I think someone's hurt." I asked what he meant. Then I heard it again. That scream. Long, tearing, not quite human. I sat forward in my chair. "What direction is it coming from?" "All around me," he said, voice trembling. "Sometimes it sounds far, then it's right next to me. My lights don't catch anything, but it keeps moving." The timestamp made my chest tighten. He was miles away from the woman near the fire tower. Different roads, different directions, yet both of them heard it at the same time. I kept him on the line until officers got there. They found the truck parked on the shoulder, engine idling. The driver was sitting behind the wheel, pale and drenched in sweat. He wouldn't even look at the woods. He just kept muttering, "It knows I heard it." The reports multiplied after that, not just from late-night drivers, campers, hunters, a group of teenagers who called from a bonfire spot near Hollow Pines, all of them swearing they'd heard a woman screaming for help. But when they went looking, the sound shifted, split apart, echoed in every direction at once. I logged every one of those calls, and every time it was the same. A raw, inhuman wail, sometimes distant, sometimes impossibly close. Always in the woods, always between midnight and 3 a.m. The strangest part wasn't even the sound itself. It was how far it traveled. People 10, 15 miles apart, all reporting the same thing at the exact same time, like the woods themselves were screaming. By the end of that week, I started recognizing the calls before I even answered. There's a certain edge to the voice of someone who's heard it. Not just fear, something deeper. Like the sound had crawled inside them and left a mark. One night, a man called from his back porch. He lived on the far edge of the forest. His voice shook as he said, "It's in my backyard now." I asked what he meant. Then I heard it, not distant, not muffled, clear, piercing, right through the phone. It was so loud I had to pull the headset away. It wasn't coming from his end alone. It felt like it was coming through mine too, rattling inside my skull. I stammered something useless, told him to stay inside, lock his doors. But he kept whispering, "It's calling for me. It knows my name." When officers checked, he was gone. His phone was on the porch, screen cracked. No sign of him. That was when the supervisors started to notice. Too many reports, too many similarities. But the problem with this job is, we don't have the luxury of explanations. We log the calls. We send help. We wait, and when there's no one left to help, we close the file. But I couldn't. Not this time, because every time I put that headset on, I waited for it. For the next person to hear it. For the next scream to pierce through the silence and leave its echo burning in my ears. And sometimes, even when the phones were quiet, I swore I could hear it faintly. Not from the headset, from outside. From the tree line beyond the dispatch center parking lot. Like the woods were closer than they should have been. Like the screaming was spreading. It was just after 2 in the morning when the call came in. Another report of the screams. This time it was a young couple driving home from a late movie. They'd pulled off near Hollow Pines because the noise was so loud they thought someone was being murdered in the woods. I patched the report over the radio. Officer Ramirez picked it up. Ramirez was steady, one of those guys who never seemed rattled by anything. He'd been with the department for years, and in all that time I never once heard fear in his voice. But that night, when he radioed back, his tone was different. "Dispatch, I'm at the tree line. Copy?" I pressed the button. "Copy, Ramirez. Do you hear anything?" There was a pause. A long one. Then he said, "Yeah, I hear it." The scream bled faintly through his radio, just enough for me to recognize it. That sound. High, jagged, human and not human at the same time. It made my skin crawl just hearing it over the static. "Can you describe it?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Ramirez cleared his throat, but there was a quiver in it. "It's moving. It's not staying in one place. Sounds like it's circling. Stay in your vehicle until backup arrives." But he didn't. I heard the crunch of leaves under his boots. "Negative," Ramirez said, his breathing loud in the mic. "If someone's hurt, I'm not waiting." I wanted to argue, but once they made that call, there wasn't much I could do. I logged his location, marked the time, and listened. He kept moving deeper, his voice tight, clipped. He'd stop sometimes, and the scream would roll across the frequency, far away one moment, close enough to rattle the speaker the next. My pulse hammered in my ears. "Ramirez," I said carefully, "do you still have a visual on the road?" Another long pause. Then, "No. Trees on every side." I tried to swallow, but my throat was dry. The scream came again, sudden, sharp, louder than before. It wasn't just background noise anymore. It exploded through the radio, filling the room, making me pull the headset off for a second. It didn't even sound like one voice. It sounded like many, dozens maybe, layered over each other, twisting together, all screaming at once. And underneath I swore I heard words. Not in English. Not in anything I knew. Ramirez gasped, swore under his breath. "Dispatch," he said. "It's right in front of me." My hand tightened around the mic. "What do you see?" "Nothing. Just static." Ramirez respond. The static dragged on, broken only by faint rustling and his breathing. Then a sound tore through the speaker. Not his voice. A shriek so loud and violent it felt like the wires might melt. Distorted, metallic, like the radio itself was screaming. I jerked the headset off, heart pounding. Even across the room I could hear it, shrill and endless, a noise that didn't belong to any living thing. It cut off mid-wail, leaving only silence. Dead silence. I called his name over and over, my voice breaking, but there was nothing. Just static. The room felt too small, too dark. My chest was tight, like the air itself had thinned. I kept the line open, waiting for any sign he was still there. But the channel stayed dead. When backup arrived 20 minutes later, they found his cruiser at the side of the road. Lights still flashing. Driver's door open. The woods were empty, no sign of Ramirez, no footprints beyond the spot where he stepped off the road, like the earth swallowed him whole. The radio in his cruiser was fried. I don't mean damaged, I mean blackened, melted, like it had been hit with a surge of heat. And yet the handheld he'd been carrying still buzzed faintly with static, as if the screaming had burned itself into the frequency. The officers swept the woods until dawn. Dogs, floodlights, the whole works. They didn't find a thing. No blood, no torn clothing, no tracks, nothing. Ramirez was gone. We filed the report, logged the evidence, shut down the channel. But the sound never left me. That shriek, inhuman, too sharp, too layered, still rang in my ears long after the line went dead. And at night, when I closed my eyes, I could still hear it. Not distant, close. Like it was waiting for me to put the headset back on, like it was learning my name. We were told not to talk about it. Officially, it was under investigation. But the unspoken truth hung in the room every night. His empty chair in briefing, his badge sealed in a locker no one wanted to open, his cruiser still sitting in the back lot like it might drive off on its own if anyone looked too long at it. I kept waiting for closure, for a report, a discovery, something. But nothing came. A week passed, then two. The woods stayed quiet, or maybe people just stopped calling. The silence was almost worse. It felt like the forest was holding its breath. Then came the transmission. It was a Sunday night. I was alone in the dispatch room, sipping cold coffee, fighting sleep. The radio hissed with its usual static when suddenly a voice broke through. "Dispatch, this is Ramirez. Copy?" The cup slipped in my hand. Hot coffee splashed across my desk, but I barely felt it. I knew that voice. Ramirez. My own voice cracked. "Say again?" The radio clicked, his breathing loud and steady. "I'm at the tree line, Hollow Pines. Going in now. My stomach dropped. I knew those words. I'd heard them before. Exactly before. My hands trembled as I pulled up the log. The recording was already saving to the system, the computer marking it automatically with a timestamp. But when I checked it, the date was from 2 weeks earlier, the night he vanished. I sat frozen, headset pressed tight, listening. His voice came through in the same clipped, careful tone I remembered. Word for word, beat for beat. The exact call he'd made before stepping into the woods. But it wasn't playback. The system showed it live. The channel was open. He was transmitting in real time. I couldn't breathe. Ramirez, do you copy? Silence. Then the faint crunch of leaves, his boots carrying him deeper. My throat tightened. It was the same. Every sound, every pause, every ragged breath. I remembered each detail because I had listened to it the night he was swallowed by the forest. But this wasn't possible. It wasn't possible. Static filled the gaps. Then came the scream. That layered, ragged wail that bent the air. It poured through the speakers just like before, curling under my skin. I ripped off the headset, but it didn't matter. I could still hear it. Louder now. As if it wasn't coming from the radio at all. But from somewhere in the building, the sound pressed in from the walls, the floor, even the stale air in my lungs. And just when I thought I couldn't take it, his voice broke through again. Dispatch, Ramirez said. It's right in front of me, the exact words, the exact order. I remembered how it ended, how the screaming drowned him out, how the channel went dead. I should have cut it. I should have killed the frequency. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because some part of me thought maybe somehow he was still out there. Maybe this was my chance to pull him back. Ramirez, I shouted. My voice echoed too loud in the empty room. Don't go any further. Do you hear me? Don't! The scream cut me off. It ripped through the headset, jagged and violent. I staggered back in my chair, clutching my chest. The room spun, and then silence. Dead air. I sat there for what felt like hours, waiting for the channel to crackle again. But it didn't. The log stopped exactly where it had before. The same timestamp, the same sequence. The system showed nothing unusual, just a normal recording. But I knew what I heard. I'd heard a man calling from somewhere he couldn't be. A voice stuck in time, repeating itself like a wound that never closed. That night, when I left the center, I stood by my car in the parking lot and looked at the tree line. The forest sat there, black and endless, its branches curling in the moonlight. And I swore I heard it again. Not the scream this time. A voice. His voice, faint, fragile, calling my name. I'd worked night shifts long enough to know the rhythm of the phones. There are patterns you start to expect. The drunk drivers around 11, the domestic disputes after midnight, the quiet lull between 2 and 3 when the whole town seems to fall into a heavy, uneasy sleep. That night started the same as any other. Empty roads on the traffic cams, the hum of fluorescent lights above me, the stale taste of reheated coffee that never really woke me up. Then line 3 lit up. I slipped on the headset, bracing myself for another routine call. 911, what's your emergency? But there was no answer, only static. I frowned, tapped the console to check the line. Hello? This is 911? Can you hear me? For a moment, it was just white noise, faint and crackling, like an old TV tuned to nothing. I almost marked it as a misdial. But then, under the static, I caught something else. A sound so faint I thought I imagined it. Sobbing. My hand froze on the keyboard. I leaned closer, straining to hear. It was there. A soft, uneven breath, a hitching cry, buried deep in the static. Hello? I said again, voice careful now. This is 911. If you can hear me, say something. Can you tell me where you are? The sobbing stopped. Silence stretched, filled only by the hiss of the line, and then came a whisper. It was so faint I almost missed it, but it was there. A single word, trembling, fragile. Help. My chest tightened. I hear you, okay? We're going to help you. Can you tell me your name? No response. Just static, shifting like a storm moving over the line. I tried again. Where are you right now? Can you describe what you see? The sobbing returned, a little louder this time. A low, broken sound that made the hairs on my arms rise. I glanced at the console. No caller ID, no location data, no signal trace. It was like the call wasn't coming from anywhere, but that wasn't possible. Every call has a source. A tower, a line, a signal to pin. But this one was blank. I felt sweat gathering at the back of my neck. "Listen," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Stay calm. We can send help, but you have to tell me something. Are you at home? Are you outside?" The sobbing wavered. And then the whisper returned, so soft I had to hold my breath to hear it. "They're here." My pulse spiked. "Who's there?" "Do you mean someone broke in?" Static roared, drowning the line. I pressed the headset tighter, my heart hammering. "Are you in danger? Please, talk to me." The voice came back, clearer this time. A whisper pressed right against the mic. So close it felt like it was in my ear. "They're inside." Every muscle in my body went cold. "Stay quiet," I whispered back, as if the person on the other end could hear me better that way. "Find a place to hide if you can. Don't hang up, do you hear me?" The sobbing grew sharper, more panicked. The static flared, swallowing it, breaking it apart, until the line was almost nothing but noise. I flagged the call, tried running every trace tool we had. Nothing, no number, no location. Just a blank field staring back at me. It didn't make sense. "Please," I begged, my voice low now. "Say something, anything. Let me know you're still there." The sobbing cut off again. The silence stretched, and then I heard breathing. Slow, steady. Not like before. This wasn't the caller. This was heavier, deeper, close. Too close. I froze, headset pressed tight, barely daring to breathe. The air felt thick, the room too quiet. The breath grew louder, filling the line. A low exhale, dragging in and out, almost animal. Then beneath it, the whisper came again. But it wasn't pleading this time. It wasn't broken or weak, it was right against the mic, clear and certain. "We see you." The line went dead. The console light blinked off. The call vanished from the log. No record, no trace, as if it had never happened. I sat there staring at the blank screen, heart racing, headset still clutched in my hand. I'd handled countless prank calls over the years. People trying to get a rise, kids messing around with blocked numbers. But this didn't feel like that. This felt real, too real. And yet there was no proof it happened at all. I told myself to shake it off, to move on, to log it as a dropped call and keep working. But I couldn't, because long after the line went dead, I could still hear it. That breathing, slow, heavy, not in my headset anymore, in the room, right behind me. I told myself the first call was a glitch. That's what I wrote in the log, possible interference. It was easier that way, easier to pretend it hadn't felt real. Easier to tell myself I hadn't heard a voice whispering right into my ear. But the mind doesn't let go that easy. When I went home that morning, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, every sound in my house sharper, closer. The hum of the fridge, the creak of wood settling, the faint tick of pipes in the walls. I kept listening for that breathing. That night, I sat back down at the console with a headache and 3 cups of bitter coffee in me. I wanted a quiet shift, just noise complaints and drunks on the road, nothing strange. But when line 2 lit up, I knew. I don't know how, but I knew before I even answered. My stomach turned as I slid on the headset. 911, what's your emergency? For a moment, there was nothing. Just the hiss of static, soft and faint, like a storm far off in the distance. Then a child's voice came through, a whisper, fragile, shaking. "He's in the walls." I froze. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "who's in the walls? Can you tell me your name?" The line crackled, the static swelling and then fading like the ocean pulling back. "He's in the walls," she said again, a little louder now. "I can hear him." My fingers hovered uselessly over the keyboard. Caller ID blank. Signal trace nothing. Same as before. I swallowed hard. "Are you at home right now? Can you tell me your address so I can send help?" The little girl started crying, soft and broken. "He's scratching. He's scratching to get out." I pressed the mic closer. My voice came out too tight. "Where are you? Can you hide somewhere safe?" Her whisper lowered to almost nothing. "He already knows where I am." Static rushed in, filling my headset until I had to pull it back. I tapped the console, tried to reset the line. Nothing. The call stayed open. "Sweetheart, listen to me. Don't hang up, okay? Just keep talking to me." For a long time, there was only the hiss of static. I leaned forward, straining, every nerve in me burning. Then I heard it. Not her. Something else, a faint sound beneath the static, a dragging, scraping noise, like nails raking across plaster. My skin prickled cold. The girl sobbed again, closer to the mic this time. "Please make him stop." I felt my throat tighten. "Who's there? Who are you talking about?" No answer. Just the scraping sound, louder now, grating and sharp, as if it were inches away from my own walls. Then came the whisper again. But this time it wasn't the girl. It was deeper, rougher, right against the mic. "She's not alone." I yanked the headset off, heart pounding. But even without it, I swore I could still hear the words, carried faintly through the static spilling from the speaker. When I put the headset back on, the line was empty, dead. The console showed nothing. No incoming call, no record of the number. It was like it had never happened. But I could still hear it. The girl's crying, the scraping in the walls, that voice. She's not alone. I logged the call like I was supposed to, fingers shaking on the keyboard. Unverified, possible prank. But I couldn't even convince myself anymore. Because when I went home that morning, the first thing I did was press my ear to my own bedroom wall. And I swear, I heard scratching. I spent the whole day trying not to think about it. The voice of that little girl. The way she whispered about the man in the walls. The way that other voice overlapped hers. But it's hard to ignore something when it follows you home. Every quiet space in my house felt heavier, like the air itself was pressing in. I'd be washing dishes and the faintest sound of scraping would make me drop a glass. I'd walk down the hallway and feel like I wasn't the only one moving in it. By the time my next shift started, I was already wound tight, twitchy, scanning shadows that weren't there. The first 2 hours passed normally. Routine calls, an accident on the highway, noise complaints. Then the line lit up. The number wasn't familiar. Just a blank string of zeros where an ID should have been. My hand hesitated over the button. I forced myself to answer anyway. 911, what's your emergency? Static. Always the static first, and then nothing. No child, no crying, no whispers. Just the hiss of a dead storm in my ear. Hello? I asked. If you can hear me, say something. Silence. I pulled the trace command on my console. Normally, even with bad connections, you'll see some kind of origin point. A cell tower, a district code, at least something. But nothing came up. No tower. No address. No history. Just a dead line. The longer I stared at it, the colder my stomach felt. I called the supervisor over. Told him I was having trouble tracing a number. He leaned over, typed in the override. The screen refreshed. Still blank. Probably a glitch, he muttered, shaking his head. But he didn't look convinced either. I spent the rest of the night running that call through every system I had access to. Dispatch records, telecom logs, even old paper backups. Nothing. No evidence the call had ever happened. But here's the thing. The console remembers. Every single call leaves behind a faint digital echo. You can scrub it, but it doesn't vanish completely. It's like fingerprints. And when I dug deeper, way past where I was supposed to be looking, I found it. An imprint of the call. But the origin point didn't list a tower, or a neighborhood, or even a county. It just said, unavailable. That was it. I stared at the word until it blurred in front of me. Unavailable. How does a call come through if it doesn't exist? When my shift ended, I didn't log it as unusual. I didn't even mention the static. I just wrote trace failed and closed it. But when I stepped outside, into the pale gray of morning, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I froze on the sidewalk, the hum of traffic buzzing around me, my breath fogging in the cold. I didn't answer. I couldn't. When the call stopped, I checked the log. No missed call. No record of it at all, but I'd seen the screen light up. I'd felt it vibrate against my hand. For the rest of the day, I kept checking my walls, putting my ear against them, listening. And once, just once, I thought I heard a whisper on the other side. Not the girl this time, but the other one. The voice that had said she wasn't alone. This time it said something. "Elslow Cold, you're next." I thought I could get away from it. For a couple of days, the line stayed quiet. No static, no crying, no strange voices. Just normal calls, the kind of things you get numb to after a few years. Fights, accidents, drunks, who dial 911 because they can't find their way home. I told myself the other calls had just been stress. Maybe bad connections. Maybe my mind filling in blanks it shouldn't. But then, the voices came back. And this time, the phones weren't even ringing. It started one night about halfway through my shift. The call room was steady. A few dispatchers scattered across the rows of glowing consoles. The low hum of voices and keyboards filled the space. And then I heard it. Static. Not loud, just the faintest hiss, like an old TV stuck between channels. At first, I thought maybe someone's headset was leaking audio, but the sound was coming from mine. The console was dark. No incoming call. No open line. Still, through the faint rush of static, I could hear it. Soft, ragged breathing. Like someone holding their mouth too close to the receiver. I took off my headset, checked the screen again. Blank. But when I put it back on, the breathing was still there, and under it, a sob. Faint. Small. Like a child trying not to cry. I pulled the headset away again, my skin prickling. Checked the phone. The screen didn't show anything. No log. No signal. Yet the sound went on. I whispered into the mic before I realized I was doing it. "Hello? Who is this?" No answer. Just the crying. And then a whisper. "He's in the walls. The same girl. The same tone." I yanked the headset off and slammed it down on the desk, my chair rolling back hard enough to squeak against the floor. A couple coworkers glanced over at me. One of them raised an eyebrow. "Static," I muttered. "Bad connection." They nodded and went back to their work, but I knew. The phone hadn't even rung. Over the next week, it got worse. It wasn't just me anymore. Dispatchers started complaining about phantom audio. One guy said he kept hearing faint voices bleeding through when no one was on the line. Another swore he picked up a call only to hear himself talking back. His own voice distorted by static. But it wasn't just during calls. Sometimes you'd take off your headset and still hear it, faint and tinny, like it was leaking out into the air. And sometimes, it wasn't static at all. It was laughter, a thin, brittle laugh that seemed to circle the room, never sticking to one place. Nobody wanted to admit how bad it was, but I could see it in their faces. People came in pale, left shaking. Some even started refusing night shifts. One evening, my supervisor called me into his office. He looked tired, the kind of tired that clings to a person's bones. "You've been around longer than most," he said, rubbing his temples. "You heard anything strange?" I lied. I said no. I said it was probably stress, bad lines, imagination. But the way he looked at me told me he didn't believe a word of it. That night, it got worse. Around 2 in the morning, my console lit up. But not like it should have. The screen didn't show an ID or a district code. Just the word, return. The headset was already on my ears, even though I didn't remember putting it there, and as soon as the connection opened, I froze. Every dispatcher in the room, every console, was broadcasting the same thing. Static, layered, endless, filling the air like a storm. People pulled off their headsets, looked around wide-eyed, but the sound didn't stop. It leaked out of the speakers, rattling through the air vents, humming from the wires, and beneath all of it, I heard her, the little girl. Only this time she wasn't crying. She was laughing, high and thin and broken, like a doll winding down. I pressed my hands over my ears, but it didn't matter. The sound wasn't coming from just the headset anymore. It was everywhere. The lights flickered. The monitors glitched. For one split second, my screen showed not the word return, but something else. Behind you. I turned so fast my chair almost toppled. No one was there. Just the empty aisle, glowing red from the exit sign. When I looked back, the screen was normal again. No record of the call. No sign of anything unusual, but the laugh. It stayed. Even when I went home that morning, I still heard it. In the pipes, in the walls, in the silence of my own head. And I knew then, this wasn't a call anymore, whatever it was. It had returned, and it wasn't going to stop. I used to think the worst part of the job was listening to the screams, the crashes, the choked sobs of people who might not live long enough for help to arrive. But that was before. Now the worst part isn't listening. It's knowing when to stop, because the voice, it doesn't stop anymore. The night it finally changed, the room was quiet. Too quiet. We'd just come out of a busy stretch, back-to-back emergencies, a fire downtown, a highway wreck, a domestic disturbance that ended ugly. By the time the lines cleared, the room had that heavy, drained silence. Everyone sat slouched in their chairs, breathing heavy, staring at screens like they could fall asleep with their eyes open. And then I heard it. Not static, not crying, not laughter. A whisper. But this time it wasn't coming through my headset. It was right behind me. So close. I felt the warmth of breath brush against my ear. "He's in the walls." The same girl's voice. The same trembling words. I whipped around so fast, my chair rolled back into the next console. The dispatcher beside me jumped. "What the hell's your problem?" But there was no one behind me. Just the aisle stretching back toward the doors. I didn't answer him. I couldn't. My throat had closed up. I turned back to my screen, hands shaking, sweat gathering at my hairline. And then I realized everyone else was quiet, too quiet. Nobody was typing. Nobody was talking into their headsets. One by one, I looked around the room. They were all staring at me, not with concern, not with confusion. Just blank, wide-eyed stares. For a second, I thought maybe I'd snapped, that the stress had finally pushed me into a breakdown. But then I noticed their mouths. Every single dispatcher's lips were moving. Not in sync. Not uniform, but all whispering the same words under their breath. "He's in the walls." I yanked my headset off. Dropped it on the desk. My chest hurt, my hands numb. "What the hell is wrong with you people?" I shouted, my voice too loud in the thick silence. Nobody answered. Nobody stopped whispering, and then one of them did. The guy across from me, Dan. His lips stopped moving. He blinked, looked at me, confusion written across his face. "Did you hear that?" he asked softly. The others didn't react. They just kept whispering, rocking slightly in their chairs. "What are they doing?" I whispered back, his face drained of color. "You hear it too?" We just stared at each other, both of us realizing the same terrible thing at the same time. The voice wasn't in the headset anymore. It was in the room, all around us. It moved between the walls, slid under the floor, shivered through the air vents. No matter where you turned, you couldn't pin it down, and it didn't stay the same. Sometimes it was the girl. Sometimes it was the other one, the deep, cold voice that had spoken over her. And sometimes it was one of us. That was the worst part. You'd hear your own voice whispering from just behind your chair, or the voice of the person sitting next to you, even while you watched their mouth stay still. It was everywhere. It was everyone, and then the lights flickered. For half a second, the whole room went dark. When the glow came back, the dispatchers weren't whispering anymore. They were smiling, wide, empty smiles, and I swear, though maybe I imagined it, their eyes were just a shade too dark. Like something else was looking out through them. Dan grabbed my arm. "We need to get out of here." But my console lit up again before we could move. No number. No ID. Just one word flashing across the screen. US. And then all the phones in the room rang at once. The sound rattled my skull, sharp and shrill. Every console, every headset, dozens of calls, all coming in together. And I knew, without answering, what we'd hear if we picked them up. Not the girl. Not the man, but ourselves. Because the voice wasn't outside anymore, it was inside. Inside the walls. Inside the lines. Inside us. I don't remember leaving that night. I don't remember the walk to my car or the drive home. What I do remember is sitting in my bedroom hours later, staring at the dark corner where the ceiling meets the wall, listening and hearing the faintest whisper in my own voice. One of us. Highway calls are some of the worst, not because they're always violent, though many are, but because of the waiting. The long silence after someone screams that there's been an accident, and you're left trying to get coordinates while the line fills with sirens and metal crunching. That's why I remember the first one so clearly. It was a little after midnight when the call came in. A woman's voice, frantic, breathless. "There's a crash. Oh my God, it's so bad. Please, send someone now." Her words tumbled over each other, sharp with panic. I tried to get her calm enough to give me details. "Where are you, ma'am?" "What mile marker?" She stuttered, her voice shaking so much I could barely catch it. 13. Mile marker 13. "The cars, they're everywhere. Oh God, I think they're dead." The sound of sobbing filled the line. I sent it through, flagged for priority response. Within minutes, 2 highway patrol units and an ambulance were on their way. I stayed on the call with her, listening as she kept gasping about twisted metal, sparks, headlights in the dark. But then her voice cracked as if she was choking. She stopped mid-sentence. "Ma'am, what's happening?" Her breathing hitched. "They're gone." "What do you mean?" I don't see them anymore." Static swallowed the rest, and then the line went dead. I sat frozen at my console, staring at the blank screen. 5 minutes later, patrol checked in. "Dispatch, we're at marker 13. No crash here. Clear roadway." I frowned, leaned into the mic. "Negative. Caller reported multiple vehicles, possible fatalities." "Check again." They did. Half a mile in both directions. Nothing. Just empty road. Quiet under the floodlights. When I called the number back, it rang twice before cutting to an automated voice. "This number is no longer in service." I logged it, unsettled but not shocked. Bad calls happen, false alarms, drunks, people seeing shadows, but something about her voice. It stuck with me. The way she sounded certain. The way she swore she'd seen bodies. The second call came 3 nights later. Different voice this time. "Male, younger, maybe late 20s. Dispatch, there's been a crash." Oh my God, it's bad. 2 cars, head on. "Send someone, please. I asked for his location." My stomach dropped when he said it. Mile marker 13. Same spot, same panic. I sent units again. This time, I didn't even try to hide the tension in my voice when I told the officer on duty. He just grunted, said, "Copy that," and rolled out. 10 minutes later, "Dispatch, this is Unit 4. Negative, no crash." "Road is clear." I pressed harder. "Are you sure?" Caller reported head-on collision, multiple victims. "I'm telling you, there's nothing here. Not even skid marks." I didn't answer right away. Just stared at the console, the word 13 burning in my head. When I checked the call log afterward, it was the same as before. The number didn't exist. It was like the voices had crawled out of static and then vanished back into it. By the 5th report, even the officers started to whisper about it. Mile marker 13. Always the same stretch of highway. Always after dark. Always frantic voices swearing there'd been a terrible wreck. But when responders got there, it was just silence and blacktop. One night, one of the patrolmen came into the call center after checking the scene again. His face looked gray, his eyes hollow. "I swear," he muttered. For just a second, I saw it. Headlights where there shouldn't have been headlights. A car sideways across the lane. But when I blinked, it was gone. He didn't say anything else. Just walked out, rubbing his temples like he was trying to push the memory out of his skull. The worst call came near the end of my week. This one wasn't panicked. It was quiet. A man's voice. "Low and flat. There's been a crash." I asked him where. Already, I knew the answer. Mile marker 13. I started typing in the report, but something about his tone made me hesitate. "What happened?" I asked, silence. Then he said, "You already know." My fingers froze on the keys. "Sir, what do you mean?" He didn't answer the question. Instead, he asked me one. "Do you ever drive this road?" I swallowed, throat dry. "Sir, I need you to stay on the line." But the call was already gone. No click. No static. Just gone. When the officers checked the scene, it was the same. Nothing. But later that night, when I finally left the center and started home, I realized something that made my blood run cold. The route I drive home, it passes right by mile marker 13. And as I turned onto the highway, my headlights sweeping across the dark asphalt, I saw something in the distance, a faint glow just beyond the curve, like hazard lights, blinking in the night. I used to tell myself the calls were just static in the system, that maybe the lines were crossed, or someone out there thought it was funny to keep reporting wrecks that weren't there. But the night we found him, that's when I stopped telling myself those things. It was just after 2 in the morning. A call came in like the others, only this time there was no panic in the voice. No gasping or shrieking. The man on the line sounded calm, too calm. "There's a body on the road," he said. I tightened my grip on the headset. "What location?" "Mile marker 13. The words dug into me. That number again. Always that number. "Sir, stay on the line. Help is on the way." But the line went dead before I could say anything more. I dispatched the call, almost expecting the usual outcome. Officers driving in circles, flashing lights sweeping across bare pavement, nothing to report. But not that night. That night, the first responder's voice cracked through the radio with something I'd never heard before. Raw fear. "Dispatch, we've got a male down. Multiple injuries, appears to be struck by a vehicle. He's barely alive." The room went silent around me. Every dispatcher froze. I typed out the details with shaking hands, patched the ambulance through, listened to the rush of boots and the scramble of voices. Finally, they'd found someone. Finally, there was proof. The victim was described as middle-aged, maybe late 30s, though his face was so bloodied it was hard to be sure. His body was twisted in a way that made even the veteran paramedics go quiet. But somehow, impossibly, he was still breathing. They rushed him to the hospital. I stayed on the line long after my shift ended, checking updates. It felt important, like maybe this would explain all the other calls. Around dawn, I called the ER myself. A nurse answered. I asked about the man from mile marker 13. There was a pause, then a shuffle of papers. "I'm sorry," she said. "We don't have a patient by that description." My stomach dropped. "You must. He was brought in around 3 this morning, male, mid-30s, critical condition." The nurse cut me off. "No, there's no record. No one was admitted from an accident tonight." I hung up, staring at the desk phone, my pulse thudding in my ears. Later, when the patrolmen came back in, they looked pale and hollow. "We saw him," one muttered, like he was trying to convince himself. "We loaded him into the ambulance. I talked to him." "What do you mean?" I asked. The officer's eyes darted toward the floor. "He said his name was David. He begged us not to let him die." Another officer spoke up, voice shaking. I held his hand. I swear I felt him squeeze back. "You can't tell me he wasn't real." They looked at me like I could give them answers. But all I could do was sit there in the silence, wondering if we'd all lost our grip on reality. The truth came the next night. I was sitting at my console, going through old records, when I thought of something. 15 years ago, before I worked there had been a fatal accident at mile marker 13. I'd heard about it in passing, the way you hear about old tragedies that linger in small towns. I dug through the archives until I found it. A newspaper clipping, yellowed and grainy. The headline read, "Local man killed in highway collision," and the photo underneath, it was him. The same face the officers had described. Same name, too. David, killed on the same stretch of road. Exactly 15 years ago to the day. I sat there staring at his picture, my blood turning cold. If the reports were right, he hadn't just died there once. He'd died again, and we'd all seen it happen. I wish I could say that was the end, that finding out who he was gave me closure, but it didn't. Because when I tried to sleep that night, I kept hearing his voice in my head, not just the way the officers described it, not just begging not to die. No, I heard him whisper something else, something none of them mentioned. He whispered my name. I didn't want to believe it. Maybe I was overtired. Maybe my brain was filling in gaps. But when I went back to the call logs the next day, I found something strange. The original report, the calm voice that said there was a body, it had come from my own desk phone, my extension. But I hadn't made that call, and no one else had been sitting there. The patrolmen still refused to drive past marker 13. One of them even transferred out, said he couldn't take the chance of seeing it again. I still take the late-night shifts, though every time the phone rings, I flinch. Because now, I know the truth. The wrecks aren't warnings. They aren't accidents waiting to happen. They're replays. Ghosts of something that already happened, looping back, dragging us into it. And if David can crawl back onto that road 15 years after his death, screaming for help that will never come, then maybe someday, when it's my turn to die, I'll end up there too. Mile marker 13. Bleeding into the pavement, waiting for someone who will never save me. I still remember the way her voice shook. Not the high-pitched kind of panic you hear in car accidents or fires. No, this was different. This was the kind of fear that runs deeper. The kind that doesn't quite make sense at first. But you feel it anyway. She couldn't have been more than 16. A babysitter, working a weekend night for some family on the nicer side of town. Her first words to me were almost a whisper. I think someone's in the house. Now, that wasn't unusual. I'd taken hundreds of calls like that. People mistaking the creak of an old floorboard or a neighbor's dog or the wind rattling a loose shutter. Usually I could calm them down. Usually I could explain it away. But not with her. There was something in her tone that made me sit up straighter, press the receiver tighter to my ear. "Tell me what's happening," I said. She paused for a long time before answering. I could hear her breathing, shaky, uneven. The kids are asleep. I was downstairs watching TV. Then I heard footsteps. "Where?" I asked. "Upstairs," she said, her voice breaking. "But there's nobody else here. The parents are out until tomorrow morning. It's just me and the kids." I typed out the call details, my fingers slower than usual. Footsteps in an empty house. It was the oldest babysitter story in the book. But the way she said it, it didn't feel like a cliché. It felt real. "Stay on the line," I told her. "What's your name?" "Lindsay." "Okay, Lindsay. Are the doors locked?" Another pause. "I think so." "You think so? Or you know?" Her breath caught. I don't want to check. What if I see him?" The word hung heavy. Him. She hadn't said intruder or burglar or anyone. Just him. I dispatched a patrol car, trying to keep my voice steady. "Officers are on the way. You don't need to check the doors. Just stay somewhere safe." But the line didn't feel safe. It felt like something was pressing in on both of us, like the silence around her was watching me too. "Where are you right now, Lindsay?" I asked. "In the kitchen. There's a window over the sink." "Good. Keep your eyes on that window. Stay low. Don't move unless you need to." For a few seconds, the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator on her end. Then, a noise. Not through her phone. Behind her. A sharp creak. The groan of a step taken upstairs. She gasped, clapping. A hand over her mouth, and I heard her whisper, "It's him. He's moving." I wanted to tell her it could be the house settling, old wood shifting in the cold. But I couldn't make myself say it. Because I heard it too, clear and heavy. Deliberate. The patrol car was still 10 minutes out. 10 minutes is nothing in most situations. But on a line like that, with a terrified girl whispering in the dark, 10 minutes is forever. I tried to anchor her. Asked her about the kids, how old they were, what their names were. She told me, Maddie, 4, and Jonah, 6. "Are they still asleep?" I asked. "Yes." "Good. That's good. We're going to keep them safe." But as I said it, another sound came through the line. a door softly shutting upstairs. Lindsay whimpered. "He's in their room." I felt my throat tighten. "Listen to me. Do not go up there. Stay where you are until officers arrive." But what if stay where you are? I had to make her believe it. Had to make her stay rooted, because if she ran upstairs, if she opened the wrong door, I didn't let myself finish the thought. Instead, I listened. Every breath, every rustle, every tiny sound from her end of the line. At one point, I thought I heard whispering. Not from her, not from me. Just low, broken syllables bleeding into the call. But I couldn't be sure. She must have heard it too, because she whispered, "He's talking to them." The officers were 4 minutes away. 4 minutes. But I didn't know if Lindsay would make it that long. "I can't just sit here," she said, her voice rising. "Lindsay, stay with me. Do not move." I could hear her crying now, soft and shaky. But then she stopped. The line went still. "Lindsay," I whispered. "Nothing. Lindsay, talk to me." And then in the quiet, I heard it. Not her voice, a man's, deep, rasping, just above the line's static. "She can't hear you." I froze. My stomach twisted. I wanted to ask what he meant, but my throat locked up. "Who is this?" I finally forced out, but there was no answer. Just the sharp click of the line going dead. The patrol car arrived 2 minutes later. They searched the house top to bottom. The kids were still asleep. No one else inside, and Lindsay, she was standing in the kitchen, phone still clutched in her hand. Eyes wide, face pale, lips trembling like she'd been frozen mid-scream. When they tried to talk to her, she wouldn't respond. Wouldn't even blink. They had to carry her out. I read the officer's report later. No sign of forced entry. No footprints, no fingerprints, nothing disturbed. Just a babysitter who wouldn't speak again. I think about her sometimes. About what she heard. About what I heard. The voice that wasn't hers. "She can't hear you." He was wrong. I did hear her. And I still do. Every time the phone rings, every time the static hisses in my ear, I hear Lindsay's breath. And somewhere behind it, the sound of footsteps on the stairs. People think the worst part of this job is the emergencies, the screaming, the blood, the chaos. But that's not true. The worst part is when the line goes quiet. When all you can hear is someone breathing, afraid to even whisper. When you know something is happening on the other end, something you can't see, and all you can do is sit there with a dead receiver pressed to your ear. That night with Lindsay, the silence cut sharper than any scream. I had her back on the line. She wasn't speaking, but she hadn't hung up either. All I could hear at first was her breath, fast, shallow, broken into little gasps. Then came the sound, a creak. Another groan from above her. The weight of feet dragging across wood. He was moving, slowly, deliberately, and Lindsay wasn't alone in that house. "Lindsay, can you hear me?" I whispered. My own voice shook, even though I tried to keep it steady. "Yes." It was so faint I almost didn't catch it. "He's closer," she said. "The stairs." I closed my eyes. Pictured her house the way officers later described it. A narrow hallway leading from the living room to the stairs, the kitchen tucked to the side. She was just a few feet from where he'd come down. "Stay where you are," I told her. "The patrol car is almost there. Stay low, don't move." I wanted to sound confident. But then I heard it. Not through her line. Through mine. A whisper. At first I thought it was static playing tricks on me, but no. I know what I heard. A man's voice. Shh. Like he was right against my headset. I froze. My throat closed, my hand gripping the receiver so tight it hurt. "Lindsay," I said carefully, "is he speaking to you?" There was a pause. Then, barely audible, she whispered back, "No." My stomach turned. Because the voice hadn't come from her side, it had come from mine. "Stay quiet," I told her. "Just breathe." But it was too late. The line filled with it, not one voice now, but two. Maybe three, overlapping, tangled whispers seeping through the static. None of it clear, just fragments. She's awake. She's listening. Don't let her move. I pulled the headset away from my ear, half expecting to see someone crouched right behind me, speaking into the line. But the dispatch room was empty. Just me and the dull glow of monitors. I put the headset back on, shaking. And that's when I realized Lindsay could hear it too. She let out a sob muffled by her hand. He's whispering into the phone. Her words punched the air out of me because I hadn't said anything to her, hadn't told her I was hearing it too. He's right here, she whimpered. I can hear him through the line, and then another sound. Not just whispers now. Footsteps, slow, heavy, coming down the stairs. Every groan of wood echoed through both ends of the call, like the sound was trapped between us, bouncing back and forth, feeding itself. Listen to me, I said, almost pleading. Stay low. Stay in the kitchen. Do not hang up, but she couldn't answer. The footsteps were too close. I could hear her teeth chattering against the receiver, little stifled whimpers slipping out. Then the voices came again. Clearer this time. She's ours. This time. The words didn't just bleed through the static. They came from both sides of the call, my headset, and her end of the line, spoken in perfect unison. I felt cold all over, like someone had run ice water down my spine. Lindsay, the officers are outside, I lied. They're at the door. Hold on, they were still 4 minutes away. But if I didn't give her something to cling to, she was going to bolt. And if she bolted, if she ran straight into whatever was in that house. I swallowed hard, pressing the receiver tighter. Do you see him? I asked. Her answer came out in a broken whisper. No, but I can feel him. He's right behind me. I wanted to scream at her to run, to get out, to throw open the door and sprint down the street. But the line, those whispers, they had me pinned too. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. It felt like if either of us moved, even just a little, he'd step fully into the line and neither of us would come back. And then, for the first time, he spoke directly to me. Dispatcher! He rasped, low and guttural. You can't help her. It wasn't through her phone. It wasn't through mine. It was both. Like he'd split himself between us. I clenched my teeth, whispering back before I even thought about it. Stay away from her. The silence after that was worse than anything. Then, all at once, chaos! Lindsay screamed, sharp and panicked, her phone clattering against the counter. The sound of a chair scraping, feet scrambling across tile. I shouted into the line, begging her to answer, to say anything, but instead I heard him, breathing, deep, steady, not hers, not mine. And then, whispering so close it burned into my skull. She can't hear you. The line went quiet. The patrol car arrived less than a minute later. They found the front door locked. All the windows closed, and Lindsay, she was sitting on the kitchen floor, phone still clutched in her hand. Her eyes were wide open, fixed on the dark stairwell. When officers tried to pull her away, she fought them, screamed at them not to go upstairs, but there was nothing up there. No man. No intruder. Just 2 sleeping kids and a babysitter who wouldn't let go of the phone. I never told anyone about what I heard, about the whispers bleeding into my headset, crawling into my ear like they belonged there. Because if I did, they'd have to admit the truth, that whatever was in that house wasn't just with her. It was with me, too. And sometimes, even now when I'm alone on a call in the dead of night, I still hear it. The faint scrape of footsteps overhead, the low hiss of whispers not meant for me, and the same voice, over and over, reminding me what I already know. You can't help her. I thought I'd heard the worst of it already. The footsteps, the whispers, the voice pressing through my headset like it belonged there, but nothing. Nothing prepared me for what the officers found when they finally reached the house. The call had gone dead. Not hung up, not disconnected, just dead. That strange, breathless kind of silence that clings to your ears even after you pull the receiver away. I sat frozen for a long time, staring at the log notes on my screen as if I could write the fear away. By the time the patrol unit confirmed arrival, I was gripping the pen so tight my fingers had gone numb. Unit on scene, the officer's voice crackled through the radio. Lights on inside. No movement visible. I leaned in, heart pounding. The front door was locked, they said. No sign of forced entry. No shattered glass, no broken latch. They forced it open. The first thing they saw was the kitchen phone swinging gently by its cord. Still off the hook. I felt my breath catch when I heard that. I hadn't told them yet about the whispers on the line, about the voice that had bled into both of our ears. But the image of that phone swaying in the empty kitchen made me feel sick. I couldn't help picturing Lindsay standing there moments before, clutching the phone. Her breath shallow, her voice trembling, and then gone. "Kids are safe," one officer reported. Both upstairs asleep. "No disturbance in the rooms." I should have felt relief. 2 children untouched by whatever was in that house. But I didn't because Lindsay wasn't there. They searched the house top to bottom. Every bedroom, every closet, the attic, the basement, even the crawl space. Nothing. It was like she'd evaporated. But I know what I heard. I'd listened to her voice, shaking but real, telling me he was right behind her. I'd heard the scrape of the chair, the clatter of the phone, the scream cut off too soon, and that whisper. You can't help her. The more they searched, the more frantic I became at my desk. My hands hovered over the keyboard, wanting to type something in the notes. But what could I write? Caller missing. Possible abduction. Phone line contaminated by whispering voices. No one would believe it. Unit to dispatch, one of the officers finally said. We need you to confirm. How long ago was the line active? I looked at the timestamp. My throat went dry. Less than 2 minutes before your arrival, I said. There was a pause on the radio. A long one. Finally, the officer answered, his voice lower now, unsettled. There's no way. Doors were locked from the inside. Windows secure. No exit points. The silence that followed pressed in on me like a weight. And then I heard another voice. Not through the radio, not through the line, through my headset. Still here. I tore the headset off, my heart slamming against my ribs. But the words kept echoing in my head. Still here. Were they mocking me? Or was it true? I couldn't shake the image of Lindsay standing in that kitchen, phone against her ear, staring at the dark stairwell. Maybe she'd seen something the officers couldn't. Maybe she'd heard something worse. Or maybe she'd never left that house at all. They filed the report as a missing person. No sign of forced entry. No sign of struggle. 2 children unharmed. Babysitter unaccounted for. That was the official version. But for me, the night never ended. Because later, when I sat alone at my console, the phone silent, the room too still. I picked the headset back up, and I swear to you, I heard it. Not ringing, not static, breathing Lindsay's shallow, uneven, like she was still on the other end of the line. I whispered her name before I could stop myself, and the voice that answered wasn't hers. She's gone. I don't know where. Lindsay went that night. I don't know how someone can vanish from a locked house, leaving nothing but a phone swinging on its cord. But I know this. Whatever took her didn't leave, because sometimes, late at night when the phones go quiet, I hear it all over again. The click of footsteps on a wooden stair. The creak of a door slowly opening. The faint sob of a girl trying not to breathe. And always, always, the man on the line. The call came in at 1:12 a.m. I remember the exact time because I had just taken a sip of stale coffee and glanced at the clock on the wall, wondering how many more hours I had left before I could go home. Nights like that blend together after a while, quiet stretches broken by sudden emergencies. You learn to live in that rhythm. The phone rang. I put my headset on. 1. What's your emergency? There was a pause, just breathing at first. Not panicked, not gasping. Slow, careful, like someone didn't want to be heard. Then a whisper. There's someone in my house. I straightened in my chair, my training kicking in before my brain had time to catch up. Okay, stay calm. Can you tell me your address? Another pause. Then the caller recited it, slowly. Each number, each street name. I typed it into the system automatically, not even looking at it. Until I did, and my stomach dropped, because it was my address. For a second I thought maybe I'd typed it wrong. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, backtracking, checking. But no, it was right there on the screen. My own house. Can you repeat that address for me? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The caller whispered it again, word for word. My street, my house number, my home. I felt heat rise in my face, my pulse hammering. Who is this? The line went quiet. Just that careful breathing again. Then, faintly, he's already inside. I didn't know what to say. My throat had closed up. It felt like all the air in the dispatch room had vanished. For years, I'd heard every kind of prank. Kids with nothing better to do. Drunks slurring nonsense into the receiver. People testing how far they could push us before we hung up. But this didn't feel like a prank. This felt deliberate. Listen to me, I managed finally. You need to stay on the line with me. Are you somewhere safe in the house? No response. I pressed harder. Where are you right now? Can you see him? A pause. Then, he's in the hallway. I felt dizzy. The rational part of me said it wasn't possible. I was sitting in a locked dispatch center miles from home. My house was empty. No one should have been there. But another part of me, the part that had been jolted awake by every creak in the night, every shadow stretching too far across the wall, believed it. Because I could picture my hallway exactly. The narrow stretch between the living room and the bedrooms, the light switch that flickered if you pressed it too soft, the spot where the floorboards groaned under the second step. And I could imagine someone standing there. Who are you? I asked again. This time the voice lowered, almost too quiet to hear. You already know. I gripped the headset so tight the plastic dug into my skin. I wanted to slam the line dead, but I couldn't. I was chained to it, the way you get chained to any call once you answer. And besides, some part of me needed to know what came next. Stay on the phone, I said, my own voice shaking now. I'm sending officers. But I didn't type anything. I didn't send a unit. How could I? What would I tell them? Someone called 911 from my house, but I live there and no one's supposed to be inside. They'd laugh. Or worse, they'd look at me with that pity people say for someone who's starting to unravel. Where exactly are you now? I asked instead. The whisper came back, closer this time. Bedroom door. I felt ice crawl through me. My bedroom. My door. My house, being mapped out piece by a voice that wasn't mine. I thought of the photo frames on the wall, the dresser drawer that stuck halfway, the old quilt folded at the edge of the bed. Every detail I had lived with for years suddenly didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt stolen, inhabited. And then the whisper cut through my spiral. He knows you're listening. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to tear the headset off, to bolt from the room, but my body wouldn't move. My hand hovered over the keyboard, like I might finally type in the dispatch code and call for backup, but I didn't. Instead, I whispered back, "Who's in my house?" The line hissed faintly, a soft burst of static. Then the words came, "He looks just like you." That's when the call disconnected. No click, no dial tone, just silence. I sat there with the deadline pressed against my ear, waiting for something, anything to explain it. Maybe the system had glitched. Maybe the caller was rerouting through some fake number. But when I checked the call log, the details stared back at me like an accusation. Incoming call, registered to my address. I didn't go home after my shift ended. I couldn't. I drove past my street instead, slow, headlights dimmed. My house sat there quiet, lights off, curtains drawn. Nothing out of place, nothing unusual. But I couldn't shake the image of someone standing inside, in the hallway, just beyond the reach of the window. Someone with my face. I tried to tell myself it was a prank, a cruel one, maybe even targeted. Someone could have looked up a dispatcher's information online. It wouldn't have been that hard, But no prank caller could have known the way my stomach twisted when I thought of that hallway, or how the air in my bedroom always felt heavier than the rest of the house, or how sometimes, late at night, I swore I heard breathing that wasn't mine. No one could have known those things, unless they'd been there. That night, I sat in my car outside a gas station, unable to drive any farther. And for the first time in years, I was afraid to go home, not because of the break-in, not because of the caller, but because part of me believed it, that someone was already there, and that if I opened the door, I'd come face to face with him. I didn't tell anyone about the call. Not right away. I tried to bury it the way I buried other things in this job. The screams, the crashes, the helpless begging that sometimes filled the line. You push it down. You tell yourself it's just another night. But this didn't feel like another night, because it followed me. Every time the dispatch phone rang, I braced myself for that same whisper. Every time I looked at the incoming address on the screen, I expected it to be mine again. It never was. Not at first, but the fear stayed. A few days later, it happened again. The night was quiet, the kind of slow lull that makes you almost thankful for the boredom. Then the line lit up and my chest went tight before I even answered. "Wen, what's your emergency?" And the voice came back. Not the same whisper exactly, but the same rhythm, the same quiet breath between the words. "There's someone in the house." My stomach turned. "What address?" I asked, but I already knew. They spoke it slowly, calmly. My house. Again. This time I forced myself to follow protocol. I logged it. I sent officers. My hands were shaking so bad on the keyboard that I had to retype the street name twice, but I sent them. I didn't call my husband first. I didn't want to sound crazy. Didn't want him to hear that quiver in my voice. I just waited, staring at the clock, listening to the line. "Can you describe the intruder?" I asked the caller. There was a pause. Then the words came back, low and certain. "He's standing at the bedroom door." My bedroom. The patrol car reached the house in under 10 minutes. I listened to their radio chatter, heart pounding so hard it drowned out the voices. Front doors locked. No sign of forced entry. Lights off. Then another voice. My husband's. I recognized it instantly. He was standing outside, talking to the officers, telling them he had been asleep until they knocked. That he hadn't heard a thing. That everything was fine. But then he said something that made the room spin. He told them the front door was locked from the inside. I gripped the edge of the desk so hard my knuckles ached, locked from the inside. Which meant whoever, or whatever, was in there, never left. The officers searched the house anyway, room by room. I waited, holding my breath for the sound of shouting, of scuffling, of something breaking. But there was nothing. Just static bursts over the radio as they called in clear rooms. Living room clear, kitchen clear, bedrooms clear, house empty, except it wasn't, because I was still on the line with the caller. The voice hadn't hung up, hadn't even faltered. The whole time the officers swept through the rooms, the whisper stayed in my ear, steady and unbroken. "He's here." When they finished, the officers told my husband to double-check the locks and call again if anything strange happened. They left. My husband went back inside, and I sat in the dispatch center, headset pressed against my ear, still listening to that faint, steady breath on the line. The moment my husband closed the door behind him, the whisper came again. "Now you're alone." And then the line went dead. I don't remember how long I sat frozen at my desk. Minutes, maybe hours. The room felt colder, like the AC had kicked, on full blast even though I could hear the unit humming the same as always. Eventually, I forced myself to move. I logged the call like it was routine, like I wasn't shaking so hard I could barely type. But inside, everything felt wrong. It wasn't just a prank. It wasn't just some sick joke. Whoever was calling me wasn't bound by the same rules as the rest of us. When my shift ended, I didn't go home. I couldn't. I told my husband I had paperwork, that I'd sleep in the break room. He didn't question it. He was used to nights like that. But it wasn't paperwork. It was fear. because if I walked into that house, I didn't trust that I'd be the one to walk back out. The next morning, I drove past it again. The curtains were drawn. My husband's car sat in the driveway. Nothing out of place. But as I passed, I swore I saw the bedroom blinds shift, just slightly, as if someone had been standing there watching, and I couldn't shake the thought that maybe my husband wasn't alone in that house. Maybe he never had been. I tried to convince myself of something rational. Maybe the caller had been patching their voice through some system, making it sound like the call never disconnected. Maybe they'd looked up my home address to mess with me. But how could a stranger know the inside of my house? The exact door, the exact hallway, the details that lived in my head like scars. They couldn't, unless they'd been there, unless they were still there. That night, I sat in the dispatch center staring at the phones, waiting for it to ring again, and the worst part was, a piece of me wanted it to, because if it didn't, I'd have to face something even more terrifying. That maybe I wasn't just hearing them through the phone anymore. Maybe I was carrying them with me. I didn't sleep much after that night. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, that maybe stress was getting the better of me, but it was hard to believe that when the calls kept coming. At first, they were spread out, days apart, long enough for me to think maybe it was over, long enough for me to relax just a little. But then, every time I settled back into a rhythm, the phone would ring. And it was always the same, always my house. The third time it happened, the voice sounded different, sharper. Not a whisper anymore, but clipped words, like they were in a hurry. He's inside the walls. That was all they said. No explanation. Just those words. I froze at my desk, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Where are you calling from?" I asked. No answer. "Just static," I repeated myself, louder this time. And that's when the line cut. The officers searched the house again, of course. They didn't find anything. My husband kept saying the same thing every time. That the doors were locked. That the windows were sealed. That there was nothing wrong. But when I finally made myself go home the next morning, I couldn't stop staring at the walls. The pale paint. The faint cracks in the corners. The places where the drywall met the floor. I'd never thought much about them before. But now they seemed thinner somehow, fragile, like something could slip through at any second if it wanted to. The next call came less than 48 hours later, a woman this time, her voice shaking frantic. "He's moving," she said. "He's moving through the walls." The words hit me so hard I forgot to breathe. "What address?" I asked, though I already knew. She said it. "My address? Where exactly?" I whispered. "In the bedroom wall," she said. "Behind the bed." I don't remember what I told the responding officers. I don't remember if I even logged the call right. I just know that by the time they got there, nothing was wrong. And when I drove past the house on my way home, the blinds were shut tight. But I could swear I saw a faint ripple in the curtain, like someone's hand brushing against it from the other side of the glass. After that, the calls came in clusters. Some nights it was 2 in a row. Some nights 3. Each time a different voice. Sometimes a man, sometimes a woman. Once a child. All of them said the same thing. That something was moving in the walls of my house. Sometimes they said it was crawling. Sometimes walking. Once the child's voice said, "It's listening." And then the line cut off. I stopped going home. I told my husband I was picking up overtime. That it was just easier to crash at the station. He didn't question it, though I could hear the irritation in his voice, but I couldn't bring myself to step foot inside, not when the walls of that house weren't just walls anymore, not when people kept calling me to tell me what was hiding behind them. One night, the line lit up again, and I swear my hands were shaking before I even picked it up. "What's your emergency?" At first, silence. Then a slow inhale right against the receiver, followed by a low, dragging voice. "Kitchen wall." That was all. 2 words. The line went dead. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. I could see it in my head. The narrow space between the plaster and the studs, dark and tight and airless. And something alive inside pressed against the wood, dragging itself closer. I tried to tell my supervisor, tried to explain what was happening, but how do you explain something like that without sounding insane? Strangers calling your workplace night after night, describing your house in detail, talking about the walls like they lived inside them. She nodded politely, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She told me to take some time off, maybe see someone about stress. I didn't argue, because what else could I say? That the voices weren't just on the phone anymore? That sometimes, when I was sitting in the dispatch room late at night, I thought I could hear scratching, faint and steady, in the walls around me there too. The worst part was my husband, because he swore he never heard anything. Not a knock, not a scratch, not a single whisper. Every time I asked, he just looked at me like I was slipping, like maybe the job was finally getting to me, and maybe it was. But then the calls kept coming. Different voices. Same house, same walls. And I knew it wasn't just me. The last call I took before I finally broke came from a number that showed up as all zeros. Well, Wevan, what's your emergency? The line was silent at first, like always. Then a soft, deliberate whisper. He's in the walls. Right now. I swallowed hard. What address? They didn't hesitate. They said it, and then they added something new. He knows you're not home. That night I couldn't drive past the house. Couldn't even look at it. Because I was terrified that if I did, I'd see more than curtain shifting. I'd see him, pressed against the glass, smiling. I thought I could get used to it. That's the strange thing about fear. At first, it crashes into you like cold water, shocking every nerve awake. But if it lingers long enough, it dulls. It sinks into your skin until it feels almost normal. For weeks, I lived like that, taking calls, logging reports, pretending I didn't notice when the address on the screen was mine, pretending it didn't matter when voices described the sound of crawling inside the walls of the home I used to sleep in. It was easier to pretend than to face the truth, but pretending only works. For so long, it was near the end of a long shift, the kind where the clock moves too slowly and your body feels like it's made of sand. The dispatch floor was quiet. Just the hum of the lights and the faint clatter of someone typing at the far desk. When the line lit up, I hesitated before answering. My throat was dry. My fingers hovered above the console, and then I forced myself to pick it up. "No one. What's your emergency?" At first, nothing. Just static. Then a voice I knew better than any other, my own. It was me on the line, crying, my voice shaking. "Please, someone's inside my house. Please help me!" The sound was raw, broken. Like I was choking on the words. I went cold. Completely numb, I couldn't even breathe. It wasn't a recording. I would have recognized the tinny playback of an old tape. No, this was alive. The sound of my own voice breaking right in front of me. I tried to speak, but my mouth wouldn't work. I listened as I begged. "He's in the walls. Please, he's in the walls." I don't know how long I sat frozen at my desk. Seconds, minutes, they blurred together. Then finally I forced myself to whisper, "What address?" And my own voice, crying on the line, answered without hesitation, my house, the street, the number, every detail, and then silence. I don't know why, but I slammed my headset off. Like tearing it away would change something. My chest hurt. My breathing came sharp and shallow. Across the room, one of the other dispatchers looked over at me, confused, maybe concerned. But I couldn't speak because I realized something. The voice I had just heard, it wasn't just mine. It was me now. Not a memory, not a copy. It was me, begging for help in real time from a place I wasn't, from inside my house. I sent officers again. I had to. The words barely came out of my mouth as I typed in the call log, dispatching them to my own address. My hand shook so badly the letters blurred on the screen. They confirmed arrival minutes later. Front door locked. Lights off. No signs of entry. And then, radio silence. Static flooded the channel for a moment, like the air itself was breaking apart. Then nothing. The house was empty. Again. Except it wasn't. Because I could still hear my own voice, crying for help. Not on the headset this time, but in my head, as if it had been planted there. A faint echo, looping over and over again. "He's in the walls. Please help me. I drove home at dawn. I don't know why. Maybe part of me needed to see it, needed to face it. The sky was gray and flat. My street was quiet. The house sat there the way it always did. But when I pulled into the driveway, the world tilted, because the front door was wide open. I sat in the car for a long time, staring at that door. My stomach churned. My skin prickled with a cold sweat. Finally, I forced myself out. My legs shook as I climbed the porch steps. Inside, the air smelled stale, heavy, like a place shut up too long. The living room looked untouched. The kitchen neat, everything in its place, but I couldn't shake the sense that I wasn't walking into my house. I was walking into the place the voices had been, describing all along, the house inside the house, the walls. I didn't call for my husband. I couldn't. The silence pressed too heavy on me, thick and smothering. Instead, I walked slow, every creak of the floorboards setting my nerves on edge. Upstairs, the bedroom door was ajar. The air inside was colder, and as I stepped in, I felt it. A faint vibration in the wall behind the bed, a tremor, like something shifting just out of sight. I froze. My heart slammed in my chest, and then, muffled through the plaster, I heard it. My own voice. Please, help me. So close I could almost feel the breath. Against my ear. It wasn't coming from the phone. It wasn't coming from my memory. It was coming from inside the wall. I stumbled back, my legs nearly giving out beneath me. The whisper grew louder, overlapping, distorted, like 100 versions of me, all begging at once, and underneath it, something else. A sound that wasn't human, a dragging, wet scrape, something moving. I don't remember running down the stairs. I don't remember leaving the house. I only remember the feel of the air hitting my face when I burst outside, gasping, trembling so hard I couldn't hold my keys. I didn't go back. I couldn't. That was the last time I saw my house. I don't live there anymore, but I still take the calls. And sometimes, late at night, when the floor is quiet and the phones are still, I swear I can hear it. A faint breath, a voice that sounds exactly like mine, whispering into the static, begging for help. From somewhere I'll never escape, from inside the walls. It started, like any other night, the kind of shift where you drink too much coffee just to keep your eyes open, and the quiet hum of the dispatch floor lulls you into a false sense of safety. The phones rang. People called in their small emergencies, noise complaints, minor fender benders. A husband who locked himself out of the house. Nothing unusual, until the call that changed everything. I answered the way I always did, calm, steady, like I'd been trained to. When? What's your emergency? At first all I heard was breathing. Sharp, ragged, like the caller was running. Then a man's voice broke through, panicked, cracking. He's after me. Please, please, you have to help me. I sat up straight in my chair. My whole body tensed. Sir, slow down. Who's after you? I don't know. He's right behind me. The sound of feet pounding pavement came through the line. I could hear the echo of it. Quick, desperate. Okay, listen to me, I said, trying to steady my voice. Where are you right now? Mile marker 7, he gasped. On County Road, please, you have to send someone. Then I heard it, not just him. Another sound, faint behind him, a heavier stride. A dragging noise, like someone, or something, was keeping pace. I dispatched officers immediately, giving them his location. My hand shook as I typed, but I kept my voice even. Stay with me, I told him. Help is on the way, but he was sobbing now, his words breaking apart. He's getting closer, I can't. Then, suddenly, he screamed. A raw, animal sound that pierced straight through my headset. Don't let him take me. And then, silence. The line went dead. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the console. My mouth was dry. My fingers hovered uselessly above the keys. I'd taken hundreds of calls. Some bad, some tragic, but this felt different. Like I hadn't just heard a crime in progress. Like I'd listened to someone being erased. The officers found him later that night. His body was discovered near the exact mile marker he gave me. I wasn't supposed to see the report. Dispatchers usually don't. But word gets around fast in a small department. He was sprawled out on the shoulder of the road, face pale, mouth still open like he'd died mid-scream. And the strange part, the part the officers couldn't make sense of, he didn't look stabbed, or shot, or beaten. They said it was almost like he'd been drained, like something had pulled the life right out of him. I couldn't sleep after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his footsteps pounding through the dark, his voice begging me to help him. That scream, I told myself it was just trauma, that it was normal to replay it in my head. But then the little details started to eat at me. The sound I heard behind him, that heavy stride, dragging, uneven. He said someone was chasing him. But what if it wasn't someone? I kept expecting another call. Every time the phone lit up, I braced myself, waiting for that same voice, that same desperate panic. But days went by, and nothing came. Life moved on. People argued. People got hurt. People needed help, and yet, something in me stayed stuck at that mile marker, listening to the sound of footsteps I couldn't place. Then one night, near the end of my shift, I got up to grab a coffee. The room was quiet, the air heavy with the buzz of fluorescent lights. When I came back to my desk, the phone light was blinking, a missed call, but no one else had answered it. The log showed it had come in at 2:14 a.m. and the number, it was the same number. The man's number, the one who had died 3 nights before. I didn't tell anyone. How could I? If I said it out loud, it would become real. So I deleted the log, sat there in the silence and told myself it had to be a mistake, a glitch. But deep down, I knew better. Because even now, when the room is quiet, when my shift is almost over, when I'm alone with nothing but the hum of the lights, I swear I can still hear him. That frantic breathing, that scream, echoing like it never really stopped. And the footsteps. Always. The footsteps, following just a few paces behind, I thought I could move on. After that first call, I told myself it was just part of the job. People die, and sometimes you're unlucky enough to be the last voice they speak to. I had to learn to carry that weight, but it didn't go away. The memory stuck to me like a stain that wouldn't wash out. His breathing, his scream, that dragging sound behind him, and the missed call from his number days after he was already gone. I tried to bury it, to convince myself it was a glitch in the system, a bad entry in the log, but deep down, I knew better, because death doesn't call back. It was 4 nights later when the phone rang again. Routine. That's what I thought. I answered the way I always do, my voice steady, automatic. 1, what's your emergency? And then I froze. It was him. The same man. The same voice! Help me! Oh God, please help me. I swear my blood ran cold. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. For a second, I just sat there, listening to him sob, gasping for breath the same way he had before, like nothing had changed. Like he hadn't already been found dead by the roadside. Finally, I forced words out. Sir, listen to me. My throat was dry. We've already... But I couldn't finish, because I heard it again, that sound behind him. The pounding footsteps, the heavy, uneven drag moving closer. It was the exact same as before. Not similar. Not close, the exact same. Every breath, every footstep playing out in perfect sequence, like I was listening to a recording of his death in real time. Don't let him take me. He screamed. My headset crackled, shrieking with static. I yanked it back from my ear, but I could still hear him, his voice breaking apart, begging for help. Then, just like before, the scream and silence. The line didn't disconnect. It just went dead, like someone had cut the world out from underneath his voice. I sat there, shaking, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would break through my ribs. I wanted to tell someone. To get up from my chair, walk into the sergeant's office and say, he called again, but who would believe me? They'd pull up the death certificate. They'd remind me of the autopsy. They'd say I was hearing things, that I needed rest. Maybe they'd even pull me off the floor, and a part of me wondered if that was exactly what it wanted. I should have hung up. I should have walked away, but I didn't because the line wasn't really dead. There was sound. There, faint, barely audible, a rustling, like papers being shuffled. A voice murmuring, distant, clinical. I pressed the headset tighter against my ear. It was someone reading, not panicked, not desperate. Just calm, steady words. I didn't understand them at first. The tone was too soft, the words too measured. And then, like ice water down my spine, it hit me. They were reading an autopsy report. His autopsy. The voice listed injuries, the condition of the body, bruising along the chest, the time of death. Every word lined up with what I'd overheard from the officers that night, details that weren't, public details. I should never have been able to hear through a live call. I ripped the headset off and pushed my chair back so hard it almost toppled. For a moment I just sat there, gasping for breath, staring at the console like it was something alive. The call was still active. The light was still blinking, and in the quiet of the room, I swore I could hear that voice bleeding through the plastic of the headset. Still reading, unhurried, precise. Pulled the cord from the jack. The light went dark, but it didn't matter, because even without the line open, I could still hear the last sentence clear as day. Cause of death undetermined. I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't. What would I say? That the dead man called again? That I listened to his autopsy being read through a live connection? No one would believe me. So I carried it alone. But after that night, something changed in me. The dispatch floor didn't feel safe anymore. Every time a call came in, I hesitated. My hand hovered above the console, trembling, waiting for the light to stop blinking on its own. I wasn't afraid of accidents, or fights, or the things living people could do to each other. I was afraid of him, of hearing that voice again, of what else it might bring with it. When my shift ended, I walked out to the parking lot under the buzzing orange lamps. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of rain. My car sat in the far corner, and for just a second, as I looked across the lot, I thought I saw someone standing next to it, a man, tall, shoulders slumped, watching me. I blinked, and the space was empty, but I didn't breathe until I was in the driver's seat. Doors locked, headlights slicing through the night. I drove home with the radio off, the silence pressing against my ears, and somewhere between the station and my house, I realized the worst part. The voice I'd heard reading the autopsy, it wasn't just anyone. It sounded like me. It started with just him, one man, one voice, a ghost that wouldn't let go. But it didn't stay that way, and I think that's what broke me, not the first call. Not even the second. It was what came after. The night the phone lines filled with the dead. The first call came in just after midnight. I hesitated before answering. I'd been doing that more often lately. My hand hovers over the console, trembling, like I already know what's waiting on the other end. What's your emergency? Static, not silence, static, and under it, a voice, not his voice, someone else. A woman crying, please, he's coming, I can't get away. I froze, because I knew that voice. Not personally, but I recognized it. She'd called months ago, screaming, begging for help as her husband broke down the door. By the time officers got there, it was too late. She was already gone, and now she was back on the line. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My mouth was dry, my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. I just listened as she relived her death. The wood splintering. The crash of the door. Her scream cutting off halfway through. The exact same sounds I'd heard months before. A perfect replay. The line didn't disconnect. Before I could even process what was happening, another call came in. The system beeped, stacking the lines one on top of the other. I answered, shaking. This time it was a man's voice. Panicked, gasping for air. Help! Please, I've been stabbed. And then I knew. I remembered his call too, the alleyway downtown. The officers had found him slumped against a dumpster, already cold. That had been nearly a year ago, and yet here he was, bleeding all over again. My headset screamed with another alert. Another line opening, then another, and another. The lights on the console lit up one after the other. faster than I could answer them. Every one of them was a dead caller. Their voices overlapped, tangled together, spilling into my ears all at once. Some begged for help. Some screamed. Some just sobbed, wordless, broken. But I knew every single one of them. I remembered every call. Every death. They were all mine. I tore the headset off, but the voices didn't stop. They bled out into the room, muffled, faint, as if the sound was seeping through the wires themselves. The air hummed with them. I pressed my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. They were inside my head, 100 different deaths, all screaming at once. The dispatcher's floor was empty except for me, but it felt like I was surrounded. Crushed by the weight of all of them pressing closer, I staggered up from my chair. My knees weak, the console kept lighting up. Line after line flashing red, and in between the screams, I heard something else. A whisper, low, steady, weaving through the chaos like it belonged there. I couldn't make out the words at first, but as the calls built into a wall of sound, the whisper grew clearer. Not pleading, not crying, just patient, calm, waiting. I forced myself to sit back down. My hands were trembling, but I reached for the headset anyway. I pressed it to my ear, bracing for the flood of screams, and there it was. But under all of it, threading through the panic and the static, was one steady voice, not theirs, something else, something that didn't belong to any of the dead. It was speaking directly, to me, my name, over and over, like it had been, waiting for me to finally listen. I ripped the headset off again and shoved. Back from the desk, the voices didn't fade. If anything, they grew louder, rising to a fever pitch, the console lights flashing so bright it looked like the whole room was burning red. I stumbled toward the exit, but I couldn't make it to the door. My legs felt heavy, like they didn't belong to me anymore. I dropped to my knees. My palms pressed against the cold tile, and the voices drowned me. I don't know how long I sat there, paralyzed, shaking while the flood poured through the room. But eventually, it all stopped. The console went dark. The phones went silent, like nothing had happened at all. I stayed there until dawn, slumped against the desk, too afraid to move. When the next dispatcher came in to relieve me, she found me like that, pale, shaking, eyes bloodshot. She asked if I was sick, if I'd slept at all. I wanted to tell her everything, but when I looked at her, I saw something in her expression. She wasn't asking because she cared. She was asking because she already thought I was crazy. So I lied. I told her I was fine. I clocked out, I went home, and I pretended that the night before hadn't happened. But I know it's only a matter of time. The dead don't just vanish. They've found a way back, and now that they've multiplied, I don't think they're ever going to stop.